we'll start with Heidi Browning, Chief Marketing Officer of the NHL.
Hi everybody, I'm Heidi.
Victoria Barnaby, Director of Brand Marketing for 47. And Jennifer Hinkle, VP of Digital Marketing for the Washington Redskins. So we'll start by letting everyone get to know you a little bit. So tell us what you do in your current role.
So I am the Chief Marketing Officer at the NHL, and I do everything data, digital, and social. It's the easiest way to think about it. As we think about building our fan engagement, I was brought onto the league, it's my third season, and I came from outside sports. And I was brought onto the league with a specific goal of trying to help us grow our fan base. More specifically, growing our younger fan base, our Gen Z and millennials, really understanding what our future fans are like, and then really focused on building our marketing tech stack and getting our data all cleansed so that we can run some crazy analytics on our fans and help share that back with our clubs. We get a lot of data, real world data, as well as digital data, and how can we unify that and share it back with our clubs and be smarter about what we do.
Guys, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm Victoria, 47. I'm the Director of Brand Marketing. Brand marketing can mean a lot of different things depending on where you work. For us, it includes content, social media, media partnerships, and newly retail, in-store and online, and then events of activations. So a little broad sweeping, but ultimately we're looking to fuel and drive brand awareness and brand heat, if you will. Our brand, if you're not familiar with, 47 is a global sports lifestyle brand. We're a licensee of all the major sporting leagues, like my neighbors here, and a few other team partnerships globally. One of our challenges as a brand that we've had to overcome and we still have to build upon is everyone recognizes the team logo in the front, but maybe not the one on the side. And ultimately, our brand needs to intrinsically communicate value in its own platform. So that's what we were brought on to build about 5 years ago with our team, and we've chipped away, and I'll tell you a little bit more about some of our digital efforts specifically to reach a younger consumer and a consumer across the globe.
Sorry if I'm not very loud, but hi, I'm Jen Hinkle. I'm with the Washington Redskins. I just finished my 12th season. I oversee all of our digital, social, mobile marketing, which includes email, data, analytics, which is obviously we've shifted into that space a lot faster than we all thought, but that's about it. That's my overview.
Are you guys able to hear okay? Is this okay for everyone in the back? Back a little tough?
Come on up. Come
Can't hear?
We don't
Larry,
bang.
we have a seat for you right up here.
Maybe just a little.
Larry's the big boss at Nessens, so we have to be on our best behavior here.
He's got a big glass of wine. This is awesome. I like that.
If anyone else wants to come up front, there are some seats. All right, we'll do our best to be as loud as possible here. Okay, so my next question is, how do you currently use business intelligence in your digital marketing efforts? And we'll start with you.
With me? Oh,
Yeah.
great. So we're in the process right now of harnessing all of our data. Before I came to the league, I came from Pandora, and I have to tell you, Pandora had some distinct advantages around their data. We were one of the first apps ever to be on the iPhone. We always asked for your email address, your zip code, and your gender, and your birth date. And from there, we were able to unify our data across every application that we built upon. So we had the app, we had web, we started to embed in cars, all the connected devices, and unified data on the back end. We could tell so much about our listeners. We knew who you were, where you listened, what you did. We could tell if you had kids in your family. We could tell if you were a Hispanic-speaking household. We had all of this incredible insight. We could even tell your ad tolerance. So we would not serve you an ad if we knew you would skip away and move away. It helped us with our churn metrics. It helped us with our retention metrics. So it was such an important data-driven personalization company. So coming to the league, of course, I have all this experience and with this data and thinking, wow, it's even better here in sports because you do have all of these fans who love us. They give us all this data at the club level as well as through all of our digital social channels and in the real world. It's harder. It's a lot harder than what I thought I anticipated. I underestimated how blessed we were in Pandora. So we've been spending a lot of time going through 16 years of data, going back in time, trying to clean it up, normalize it, get it ready, and building our tech stack so that we can then do all of those cool things about how do we know more about our fans, how do we know more about displaced fans, how do we marry all of our merch data with our ticketing data, with our fan and social engagement data, so that we can help enhance our club's data about their own fans, but also enhance ours as we start to grow our fan base. So we're on step 1B of the journey, I would say, and really excited to continue it. It's a, it's a big culture shift for us in the company, and I'm sure it is for others too, because we want to be an insight-led, data-driven organization, which takes a lot of change management. Like we're focused on all kinds of data, but it's not this at the same level, and so we're really excited about bringing that to fruition.
Just real quick before we hear from Victoria, so Heidi, the cool thing about you is, so every arena that Heidi visits with the NHL, she goes into the stands and she kind of acts as a spy, and she asks fans what they like about the league, what they don't like about the league, and they don't know who she is. Yeah. So how did this come about, and what do you learn when you're in the stands?
Well, it came about my first game. I was going to go to my first game in joining the league, tickets to the Rangers. I had a friend who was going to come with me, and he had to go because his daughter was sick. So I went by myself, and I sat in the stands, and his family was in front of me. It was like 4 generations of Rangers fans in front of me, and they were looking behind, and they're like, why are you here alone? Nobody comes to games alone. And they started chatting with me, and I started chatting with them. They found that I just moved to New York. They invited me to Thanksgiving dinner, like we became friends. So I was like, oh, free food, and you get to really learn about, this is a 4-generation family that brings their family and the depth of the personal relationship they feel with the Rangers and their family. And so I started to do that and find seats all over arenas wherever I go to visit, and I always meet really, really interesting people, moms, hockey moms, young ladies. It seems like the young women are the ones who kind of pop out of the woodwork, whether it's in arena or just meeting people online through Twitter, through social, and I always respond to them because they always have something really valuable to say, and especially the women, the young women. There was a young girl, Sabrina Solomon, who was like 11 years old when she reached out, and she came in with a full PowerPoint full of marketing ideas for us for how to capture young fans, and we decided to appoint her as like the head of our fan council. But it's so important because we see the world through the marketing tactics we see. She sees it in a different way, and we can be, as winning awards and as brilliant as you think you are, but if you're not reaching that demographic, you're not reaching them. So we're trying to infuse these kinds of insights from hockey moms, from families, from kids, into all of our marketing and our insights.
Be careful if you see her at a game. She's going to try to pick your brain a little bit.
Sometimes I do the reveal. It's not totally a secret shopper thing, always. Yeah.
So we're going to go back to that original question about business intelligence and digital marketing.
Similar to Heidi in the NHL, 47 has a little bit of work to do on the digital marketing side, but I'm proud to say over the past 5 years we've made a lot of progress. So 47 is a 70-year-old company. It was founded by Arthur and Henry D'Angelo's hustling on the streets of Fenway Park, and our brand was actually born really out of stadiums. So what we knew was how to hustle and how to get a sale for 70 plus years, but a lot has changed in retail. Think about the retail apocalypse. When we decided we needed to create value behind headwear and apparel, that's our brand, but we also needed to reach that customer early to create some loyalty, and we also needed to come up with a new way to sell directly, right? That expectation of the consistency digitally. So to answer the question, if you think about the funnel, which isn't all that linear these days, it looks a little bit more like a pretzel, we're working brand marketing-wise, emphasis on that top funnel awareness, traffic, engagement especially. We'll try to measure sentiment, and then we recently reorged in a really positive way with our direct-to-consumer experience, because the consumer is expecting a very, very smooth transition from social or website to your website to purchase. So we reorged, and now we're looking at some of the mid-funnel. So we'll look at conversions, redemptions on codes, and try to connect the dots in a more clear way to demonstrate those analytics. So that's a long-end answer.
For us, we have a vision. It's to see the 360 view of the fan, because we've talked about there's so many different data capture points at this time that really tying it all together and understanding who exactly is coming to our stadium and maybe who is never going to come to our stadium, but we can engage them in a different way so that we can market to them differently is just so important, because as we all know, that retargeting thing, that dress that I did not want to buy on White House Black Market keeps showing up. I still don't want to buy it. Like it's getting old. So we're really trying to understand who our fan is, what they're doing, and it starts with, I got to say, we were really, I think, at the forefront as far as data collection and capturing those good old AOL email addresses. Now I'm looking at the data like this has got to be garbage. We've got to clean it up, and it takes a lot to actually say, go from your 5 million person database to say maybe it's more like 3. It's painful, but it also is important to go through that step in the process of really getting your data clean so then you can actually work with it. And at this point we are, let's see, you said you're 1B, yeah. So that puts us at, we're not at 1A even, I don't think.
This is very therapeutic. Yeah,
it's
good.
I know, I mean,
we're all a work in progress.
We're all a work in progress, and as it's evolving so fast, it's really hard to keep up with, but there's so many different analytics tools and platforms that we're using to try to like tie it all together into one big data warehouse and then actually find some really smart Tim McGarry's to like really tell you what this all means and then be able to activate against the fan for the fan is really the next step in this whole process.
And so a question for you, going off of that, you mentioned to us when we were on a phone call that it's hard to compete with the in-home experience. I mean, people like watching NFL games at home. It's comfortable, it's not as cold, especially here in New England. So how are you getting people in the stadium? What data are you looking at? And what have you learned from that?
Well, I think that's the first part, is understanding who it is that's coming in our stadium. So we know who our season ticket holders are, but they may not be the ones that are actually going to the games. They're giving them to their friends, their families, and whatnot. And I think in the stadium, there's an amazing opportunity for data collection as far as whether Heidi wants to eat a hot dog or have a Coke, or maybe a wine or something like that, and we can start collecting all these different data points so that we can actually build a fan experience that feels customized to each fan. There's something for everybody at the stadium, because I don't think it's unique to the NFL. I think the at-home experience is becoming, it's significantly cheaper for a family. It's more comfortable, there's no traffic, there's also no tailgating, which is like my favorite sport of all time. So I think there's still something to be said about watching a game in person, but to really attract, I think we're all going after that millennial Gen Z audience now. You've got to make it exceptional. It can't just be your average sport. It's not good enough. Your avid fan is going to come to the game. It's getting that casual fan interested and coming out to spend their time and get involved. That's really going to be a challenge, I think, for all sports teams.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to build on that, because I think we're both faced with the same kind of challenges with the next generation, because you've got an attention issue, right? We can't add more hours in the day. We have to capture their attention. They don't have attention span to sit through an entire game, right? They'll buy tickets, go to a game, and then not sit in their seat because they want to have social hour. So the whole arena and the field, they're all and the stadiums are all kind of transforming slowly to create new spaces and places for these generations to engage in and take in games in the way that they want to, but still have that live experience. And I think when you start to look at the trends in food, the trends in like how you're using mobile, the trends in mobile ticketing and mobile personalization, that's what they want. And so the more that we can collect this data and personalize the experience for each and every person, we're going to see a much more effective fan experience down the road.
And that's a good point with your mobile device, because that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
You can walk in the stadium with your mobile device and you can scan your ticket, you can buy food, you can participate in this cool VR activation, whatever it is. And when you sign up for that phone, you signed up to give away all your data, right? So we're collecting it, and I think it's just how you use it so you can really leverage it to make it meaningful for everybody.
Okay, and I was told it's a little hard to hear still, so we apologize. We're going to try our best to project, so it can be a little louder. But I want to ask all the panelists, is there any specific project that you've been really proud about and it's been a successful project that you want to talk about? I'll start with you.
I've got one. Yeah. I've got one. Coming into the league and thinking about how do we tap into these younger generations, we did a lot of focus groups. So we held focus groups across the country, Gen Z and millennial, fascinating. We kept them separate so they felt comfortable sharing their own perspectives. They were all casual hockey fans of other sports. We didn't want to talk to avids, but we wanted to understand what are the barriers, what are the attitudes around sports in general, hockey, understanding how they engage with media, technology, athletes, etc. And found all kinds of interesting things that we can talk about after the show, but there are very many differences. But the commonality they had was they admired the avid fan base. It's so tribal, and they're like, I just want to be a part of it, but they felt like they were intimidated a little bit. They were too intimidated to ask about the rules or ask about the history or the tradition. There's a lot of history and tradition and insider stuff with hockey. So we took all that information back and decided we would get a cultural icon, Snoop Dogg, who's a huge hockey fan, to come and do a whole series called Hockey 101 with Dog Cherry. And he went through every episode, was traditions, it was history, it was slang. He went through icing, he went through offsides. He explained everything in the only way that Snoop can do. And we had 29 million video views on it, reached 75 million people. But more importantly, 95% of our views on YouTube were for people who don't follow us or subscribe to us, and 72% on Facebook didn't follow us. So this was an expansive opportunity for us to reach audiences we never would through a cultural icon. So we're going to continue to do those kinds of things, and we'll bring back Snoop for the playoffs for sure, because it was so effective. We still hear about it. Yeah? All right. Okay, good.
Larry was a fan. So this was also interesting in the WISE event, especially. We want to talk about this, but does anyone know Kendall Coyne, the name Kendall Coyne, the woman hockey player?
Yeah.
Yeah?
It's Angela, yeah.
Okay, even better. So for those who don't know, Kendall Coyne competed recently in the NHL All-Star Skills Competition. It came about because someone that was supposed to compete, they got injured, and 4 hours before the event, the team tweeted at her and said, hey, you're here, can you do it instead? And it's the first time a woman has ever competed in an event like this. It was such a groundbreaking moment. So very, very amazing. If you haven't seen the clip of her skating, you really need to. She is so quick. She even beat one of the guys.
But she beat one of the guys, yeah.
The NHL got a lot of positive feedback for doing this, for letting her in, for being so inclusive. So what was the feedback that you guys received from that?
It was very positive. It was positive for the league. It was positive for Kendall. Not only did she beat one guy, but she went to the NWHL the week later. They had their All-Star, and she beat her own time. She is fast. And Patrick Burke has had his eye on her since the first time she stepped on the ice, and he's known that she's been really fast, and he's always dreamed of having her join. And we have the women come to test. They do the demonstrations of all of our All-Star skills. So it was just so amazing that at that moment in time when we had a crisis, when Nate McKinnon could not skate, and then to have Kendall Coyne there and to just do such a terrific job. And now she's been going out and telling her story. And I think what she's more important is she's raising the awareness around women in sports and the dialogue and the conversation around it. And so we hope to see her continue to do that and continue to work with her.
Very cool moment. Okay, a big project that you were excited about.
You know, similar to Heidi, you were talking about how one of your campaigns expanded your audience. Really, that's really an emphasis on our marketing over the past few years on the brand side of things. So if you just there's no specific project in particular, but I think the body of work in 2018 was particularly notable. So if we look at what we accomplished year over year, our social communities grew over 600,000 people. So relative to our competitors, it was incredible growth. 58 million impressions for us, which was significant improvement. Handled 54 customer inquiries. So just the activity, the engagement, it's a testament to the team. They put on events, they put on activations, campaigns that all fueled that. But one of the things that we need to do in 2019 is we have this incredible, fully engaged community, wants our gear, but when we look at our email database, looking at our direct consumer, it's a huge discrepancy. So now the task at hand is how do we take these advocates and loyal followers and make them into customers? So I think 2018, those were the highlights, that a few different Carhartt initiatives, Liverpool, a few others I could rattle off, but really the body of work has now set us up for hopefully some special projects in 2019 to achieve those goals.
And kind of going off of that, you guys are very active on social media, but
Absolutely.
Social media is changing so much, especially for companies. So what have you learned over the past few years on social media? What surprised you?
I don't want to say this one's a surprise. I mean, we all saw it coming, should I say, Periscope. but the move towards live and real time, definitely, I think we can say that wherever sector we're in, but how the consumer was going to adopt, because at the end of the day, we can predict, but we decide as a consumer. So think about the highs and lows of Snapchat, and then ultimately we're all on Insta Story, or now soon to be Insta TV. I would say the move towards real time, and really it's a testament to the team in 2017 looking at those metrics, those early indicators. We resourced in 2018 so that any of our events and activations, any of our campaigns had those components to them. And so as a result, when we came to the budgeting process, we said, hey, we've got to be faster, nimbler, we're working. We had a 600% increase in Instagram engagement alone, just to give you a sense of that tactic really working. So now we're going to be bringing out in-house content creators, so photographer, videographer, so that we're not going to be incurring these huge third-party costs. We could be nimbler, or we could give guidelines to partners on how to create content in a more meaningful way that works for us. So I would say live, and I think I talked about it a little bit earlier, but the expectation that the consumer has that the seamless experience from social to digital to the website. I mentioned customer care cases being 5,400. That's a lot. That's 40% increase from what we saw last year. It's a lot of questions about orders, product availability. So our standard on social has typically been a response time of 24 hours or 1 hour for major drops. But our internal customer service team was not on the same page resource-wise. Took a few days to get to emails, and you think about that's a really frustrating timeline. So as a result, this past holiday, we brought in some great talent, we invested in the people, and we did a small test with a partner, which drove down our email response times down to that hour. So we had the match in the response time, and we're probably going to be resourcing against that in 2019 to action on that insight that we learned. So that is all the changes that we're making operationally, but ultimately affect our digital marketing. So we're going to see better reach, better engagement, better sentiment. It's all holistic in that sense, but I would say that's the second trend. Again, not very much a surprise because I'm pretty impatient. I have a love affair with Amazon, so that's my expectation. Everyone can attest to that, my fiance included, with all the boxes, but nonetheless, we're getting there, and I think that's something we're going to be celebrating. But those were two big trends that I think were really relevant, I think, across all of the sectors here. So.
Okay. And Jennifer, we're going to go back to that original question. What's a big project that you guys have been
Oh my gosh,
working
I have to
on?
follow Snoop's story. I mean, this is terrible. I'd say the same thing. There's not really one big project. We've been really just taking on a lot of different things. I'd really rather touch on the social piece, where I think there's this resurgence of YouTube with the younger audience that, I mean, I think I was an early adopter on YouTube, and then it kind of, we all got Netflix and, right, there's all these things, and then now it's where they're all going to consume our content. I think we overthought content creation a little bit, in the sense that there's different audiences on all these different channels, and so one of our big projects last year is we actually engaged a local university to run business analytics around all of the different platforms, so that we could really understand, is it the same person that's consuming this on? It's probably not, because somebody might be a little bit more accustomed to watching a video on Instagram versus YouTube versus Facebook, or wherever you get live, or on demand. So we were trying to really piece that together to understand how we can best deliver content so that it reaches everybody, and in the right medium. So it's a little bit shorter on some channels, longer on others.
And before we get to the next question, we have to talk about this. This is really cool. So you might be surprised to learn that 48% of the Redskins fan base is women. 48%, almost half of their fan base. They have the largest women's fan club in the NFL. So what are you guys doing so great that all these women want to be fans of the Redskins?
It's been a careful build. It started small, and I think we really did it in the right way. First of all, we're in a market that we have about 50-50 men to women. So we've got this, we're actually 48%, and we're number 3 as far as women fan base, but our women's club grew really organically because we knew we had all these women in our market that were football fans or sports fans. And we of course have our avid women Redskins fans, my mom being one of them. She's diehard, but we tried to form a community of women, and it started sadly with the league doing more of a football 101 concept, and I think a lot of women were a little insulted by that, because they're like, I know football, want to talk to. And on the other end of the spectrum, there's plenty of women that want to watch the game with their husband or boyfriend and they don't understand any of it. So you're trying to find this balance. And we started forming more event-based marketing for them so that they could all join into a community and feel really comfortable bringing in some players sometimes, but also we do things like sip and paints and just fun things with football. So I think we've had a lot of success in building that just as a community in general, but we are a little bit lucky in the fact that our market is strong, or at least equal 50-50 base, but I think it's a testament to really tapping into that younger generation and giving them a place to go and connect and watch sports with other females.
That's great. So we're all here for digital marketing. I just want to ask you broadly, is there anything about digital marketing that you've learned where it's going over the next couple of years? Start with you.
Well, I was early into digital marketing, like back in the early days in San Francisco, where the first agencies were bringing digital advertising to market. And I remember the day I fell in love with digital. It was the day I figured you could measure ROI automatically and you could personalize. And it's taken until now. This is like, long time, 15 years ago, but it's taken until now where the technology is actually catching up with the vision. And that's what I think is so exciting about it. And coming from working at MySpace before Facebook existed, going into the app space with Pandora, all of these opportunities are opportunities for us to learn and continue to create. And so I would encourage you all to just think through how can you embrace these. Don't be afraid of them. You're going to try, you're going to fail, you're going to try again. But it's important for you personally as well as professionally to continue to lean in on all the digital opportunities that are out there.
I'd say the same thing as far as personalization. It's amazing that we went from Dear Jennifer to now they're actually serving me up something that I am actually interested in. It doesn't matter if it has my name on it. I think the ROI piece is something that we're now being held accountable by different brands that are sponsors to deliver back. And it's also, I view it as an advantage because there's still that problem of measuring your sign on the highway or in the stadium where digital has an immediate measurement behind it, and you can course correct really easily in digital marketing if you have someone that's really paying attention to what's happening. And I think that's actually an advantage more so than a pressure situation to deliver. But I think it's going to be a requirement very shortly from all of our partners to be able to show numbers behind everything that we're delivering.
At the end of the day, marketing is a function to support the business. I think we all can know about that. So absolutely, the emphasis on ROI. I know I mentioned real time, the expectation for a smooth digital process. Some that are a couple steps down the road for us, but I'm definitely seeing blockchain technology, ad fraud. I mean, we're all talking about media and whether you're selling it or whether you're purchasing it. There's a lot of fraud. And I don't really know the beginning of it, but I have some research to do. We think about social networks as well, coming out and publicizing that their metrics weren't all that accurate, and they own their own technology. That's a little scary. And then artificial intelligence. So for those who are really working on, say, SEO optimization, using artificial intelligence to scan the web in real time and provide you with informed learnings or maybe a content plan to inform your keyword strategy and your content resources. So not quite there for 47, but looking down the road, those are some big ones that I think we all should start to plan against.
Okay, we're going to open this up for questions very shortly, but before we get to that, you have a cool story, Victoria, about someone in this room actually that involves wives.
Humble brag, humble brag. So 3 years ago, a panel attendee introduced me to a very driven young woman who was working for the Bruins in PR communications. I had a new opportunity on my team, interactive marketing. She joined our team. She grew our social media followings tenfold, engagement through the roof. So here I am touting all of these accomplishments. These are much to her hard work, her metrics, and she was just promoted to a brand new position. We are bridging that gap between social and our website, and she'll be overseeing our digital marketing efforts, and that's Erica Wentz over there. I'm going to thoroughly embarrass her. Yeah. So thank you, wives. Good people. Yeah. Good.
All right, so Joyce is going to grab the mic if anyone has a question for the panelists.
This is the dangerous, this is the trip center.
Can everybody just yell? Hi, Paul Bermel with Nesson. Just wondering if, Heidi, the NHL you've talked about, will you make it a regular occurrence at the skills competition now to have a woman participate? Has that been talked about?
We were very, very happy with everything that happened with Kendall at this one. It's a decision that's above my head, but I would personally love to see that.
Hi, Antonia with 47. So Jennifer, this is just being actually a different fan than the Redskins. Do you guys think of the competitor fans at all? Personally, just wondering, with your fan, kind of like in everything, yeah.
Our competition is not actually the Cowboys or the Eagles or the Giants. Is that what you're getting at? Like
Eagles,
our
I'm sorry.
I'm totally kidding. No, but
I'm just curious because I go to a lot of, like, I've been to the Redskins Stadium, so I don't know if they actually think of because it is a big portion of the fans that are
coming
the
away game team. Yeah, that happens at our stadium more often than we would like. And for the record, Steelers fans travel everywhere, so get over it. But yeah, I think that's an important part of our data collection because we do want to know who's coming into our stadium, and ultimately, it's our ticket sale, so it's revenue for the business. It's not ideal for our team. We'd rather have a Redskins fan in the building, but if you are going to be in the building, I want to know who you are, and I want to sell you a ticket maybe next year when you're going to come back, and when we start winning, maybe we'll shift your allegiances a little bit. But I do think it's also for us, the competitive market is more or less the other teams in town, and trying to understand why they might be choosing to go to a Nats games or Caps Wizards versus Redskins game. And there's obviously various factors that go into that, but I think at the end of the day, a person in the market has a set number of dollars that they're going to spend on that kind of activity and trying to make yours the most desirable. But I think the data collection, for whoever is coming in, because then we know how to tame you, Eagles.
Hi, I think a big topic at Sloan this year is going to evolve around the landscape of sports betting and how that's constantly changing. I'm just curious in terms of digital marketing and the things that you're looking at, what are your thoughts on that space and how it may affect your roles, team, brand, league accordingly?
I can speak to this. One of the things that we're excited about that's we think is going to fuel sports betting is our player puck tracking. We've been in R&D for over 2 years trying to get a puck that could withstand the speed and the force and be able to track every aspect on the ice. It records up to, 200 times a second, something like that, so that we can take these analytics and then fuel real time into broadcast graphics so that we can give insights that nobody else has on our players, how much puck time, how much ice time they have, how fast the puck was going, etc. But it also can fuel our sports betting opportunity, real-time books. We did a demonstration at CES this year, and it was a really cool way that you could see how quickly that data can be infused into sports betting. So we think it's an opportunity to grow the fan base. We think it's an opportunity to grow viewership on our broadcast partners because people are going to want to see that connection and bet on it. You don't have to be in an arena to bet. And so we think it's all upside on our front.
I can't wait to learn about this at Sloan because I think we're all wondering what's happening, and for us, we're in an interesting market because it's state by state. So DC is taking a little bit of a lead where Maryland, where our stadium is not. To your point, it doesn't have to be an arena, but I think there's been a lot of technologies put in place as far as the next-gen stats that may be conducive, and I agree. I think we already saw what happened with fantasy. Fantasy made so many people no longer they're a fan of a team, but they're following players around. So I think the sports betting is an upside because you're going to draw in a different interest group, if you will, to engage in that sport in a way that they choose to. So
we're a little bit. Oh no, go ahead. Nobody raised their hand.
That's all, folks. No. I'm not as direct of a one-to-one, but on the sports betting side, it's a lifestyle thing, right? Just like there's a culture behind tailgate sports betting, whether it's from your phone at home on your couch to at a bar, that's an opportunity for us because we're a sports lifestyle brand, and of course the connection back to the team. So there's an opportunity for you to maybe sport your own team gear. The NBA with the integration for naming is even stronger partnership. On the wish list of things would definitely be a partnership with the likes of a DraftKings, and maybe create some sort of integrated experience where we're your official headwear and partner, just an example of, just to better connect you with your favorite team's gear.
So you talked about with digital marketing how the vision has finally been met by the technology, and that's forcing a lot of your partners now to think very critically about the ROI they're receiving from their digital marketing assets they're getting from you. Has that changed either for the NHL, the Redskins, or the way you guys are looking at partnerships, what your partners are demanding from you, or how you approach a partnership to begin with, whether it's more of a pay for performance model, or is it more like you because you all understand that digital landscape changes so quickly, right? 1 minute Facebook is the hot thing, the next minute it's Snapchat, and 2 days later it's Instagram. How do you approach that from a partnership standpoint from the get-go so that you can kind of reach the ROI that they're all going to demand?
I can answer really quickly because it sounds like that's more of a question for you guys, but as somebody who is on the pursuing end of a team partnership, right, we're ultimately buying that media that is being sold. First, we optimize the retail level, so if our pro shop isn't up to par on a great customer experience online and in-store, that's step number one. So we build that into the partnership, and then we go from there. Then we amplify because the structure is sound. So we definitely prioritize social and digital because at the end of the day, those are measurable. You're right, we talk about the trends. We definitely shifted priority in Instagram from Twitter, thinking about 5 years ago. So as we re-sign partnerships, we look at ROI at the retail level, and then when we look at the media mix, we're going to where are we going to influence, and then prioritizing social, digital, and then maybe some wayfinding opportunities. But
I don't know how many people heard last year when Anheuser-Busch changed their model to performance-based, and it ultimately comes down to beer sales, right? But I think it's an interesting way to look at things because I think more brands are going to follow suit. For us, we're starting to, we went from selling, you get 5 Facebook posts and 5 tweets and whatever that is, and an agency wants to see that because they want to evaluate it, but we're slowly trying to shift this so that it's more impression-based. I don't know if that's the right answer, but something else we've kind of experimented with is more of a digital bank so that we can, if you have the right partner, you might be able to get away with that, where you can experiment if something's not really working or you need to course correct, then we can be flexible, but it's definitely been very challenging on the sponsorship side because I think it was already hard enough for them to sell digital. They're traditional salespeople and it's easy, the sign in the stadium is worth X, but now even that has to be measured. So I think we're trying to shift digital as much as possible to that, make it a little bit more flexible, more so than a sign.
And I'll flip the script on you just a little bit. So I'll talk about ROI that for my marketing efforts in terms of trying to drive tune-in, which is the most difficult thing to measure out there, the direct tune-in measurement from digital. And there's a company out there that's embedded in smart TVs. It's all opt-in. For people who buy these TVs, they opt into this panel. This panel is about 13 million people, which is significant. What we did is we ran advertising to drive tune-in on Twitter, because Twitter's your companion when you're watching television. We ran it on 4 games during the Stanley Cup playoffs and championship last year. And we saw, and it takes a second-by-second screen capture of everything that's going on the television, maps it back to ad exposure, and then shows your lift in people who were exposed to versus non-exposed to advertising. And we saw an average of a 40% lift of people exposed to advertising in Twitter to drive tune-in. And I'll tell you, that's so important to us as a league because that's a big part of our business and for our partners. So to continue, for technology companies to continue to lean in on this and for us to continue to experiment with this, it's not 100% direct related, but it's a more correlative than we've ever been able to see before. So that's exciting for us.
We have one question, and then I'll go. So we're going to be immersed in the next 2 days with analytics, but I guess, Heidi, a question for you. How could you have used analytics in the past, and what prescriptions would you use going forward on the success of Gritty?
You can't predict that stuff, I got to tell you, and we're just riding the wave while we got it. He is phenomenal. Can you believe how incredible he is? He's got a huge following. He's been on more nighttime talk shows than probably any player that we've had. He is just doing great stuff. So yeah, when he first came out, we weren't sure what was going to happen, and it's all the flyers. It was 100% their work and their brand genius, and it's 100% the person inside the Gritty costume. His personality is really what comes to life.
Has everyone seen Gritty, the Flyers mascot? Yeah? Yeah. You love him?
So I have a question. Gritty terrifies me, but I'm a big fan of his. Now it's 2019. We know we have a long year ahead of us, but if you're asked of what you're planning to invest in or divest in for 2020, what do you say?
We're investing more in digital, social, and analytics. And content, right?
Content. I would say, in addition, content resources.
Do you want AI or do you want machine learning or a chatbot?
I want it all. Yeah. Depends on the goals and the priority, but I would say AI to get ahead. 2020, yeah. Probably 2025 by then, but yeah.
AI is a huge investment for us this year, and we have been working on our chatbot for 9 months now, so hopefully that will launch, and I think we're testing the waters a little bit, but and I think we started doing VR stuff a few years ago, and I think there's still something interesting in that space, but tying back to the analytics piece, maybe less so.
Question. Nikolai Pancher from Turnkey. So historically, sports properties in the United States and Canada do a great job of obviously knowing the database, knowing the local market fan and the audience in your market, if you're the Redskins or if you're the NHL in the US and Canada. As you try and take your properties internationally, globally, how much effort do you put into that, and what are the challenges, I guess, for knowing these audiences that are beyond your market with the new privacy laws in Europe and everywhere, and how much effort do you put into that?
So we are doing a lot more games globally. So we were this season we were in Finland, Switzerland, Germany, and Sweden, and China. And so in the European markets, we're absolutely doing marketing tactics to bring them into our database. We're doing in-language email marketing and CRM and social publishing. In China, it's a totally different world, as you know, a totally different game there. We have an agency there that's helping us build our social following and customize our content or localize our content, if you will. And right now, we're just trying to build our fandom, not necessarily build a database there. We're working on building that one-to-one connection through WeChat and Weibo. So there's a lot of opportunity there. There's a lot and by building the MarTech infrastructure, it enables us to be able to know who's from European countries, which is really important, as you know, from GDPR standards. So that's the most important thing. Like that, the work that we're doing today is setting us up for success globally for all of our marketing communications.
I think from the team level, our team really isn't doing a whole lot in the international space. We played in London a couple of years ago, so that was more of a priority. But I'd say from the league level, they're doing a lot to support the teams that are interested. There are definitely teams that are in the right market, especially Hispanic market, or the Jaguars are over in London every year, so they're really building something. So I'd say we get a lot of support from the league side. I think there's a huge opportunity. I think we have a little bit less of an opportunity than NBA and NHL, given that so many more of their players are international than ours, but when you look at the numbers, it's wild. I mean, it's so much bigger than just the US, right? So there's something out there, and we still have our awesome little fan base in London that's supporting us, and we're trying to keep in touch with for when we come back. But
47, what makes our appeal globally is that we're American. So it's much thanks to our partners at the team and league level. But our business, the way that we can function globally is we do need to have rights to operate in different countries. So our expansion into new markets does rely on our partnership and how we nurture that over time. So we're dictated based on the category. But I will say that when we look at our social communities and we see that Brazil, the Philippines, we see Canada, you know, I don't know if I'm calling that international, but our neighbors, you know, we see some repeat offenders in terms of highly engaged, right? So we know there's opportunity. What we hope to do is by nurturing these relationships, maybe bringing the analytics to the table, maybe we'll unlock some new doors. But we definitely have some inherent barriers because at the end of the day, we're a brand and there are other brands that are already out there. So now we're not first to market. So there's a few other challenges when it comes to global, but I think maybe some of the data that we talked about today in digital marketing can maybe help us overcome some of those.
So that's actually all we have for Q&A. We have an hour left of the event, so there's a lot more food coming, a lot more alcohol to be drunk as well. But I do want to give a really quick Wise plug. This is one of the largest co-ed events that we have. And when you think of what we do in the workforce, it's not all female. It's actually, we're the lower of the ratio. So I know a lot of the men here might not be Wise members, but I hope you become Wise champions for the companies that you work with. It's a huge thing, not only to be a sponsor, but to encourage females in your offices to become members or provide memberships for those females so they have other females they can talk to and follow after. Because this is all about beating the ratio. These panels that we have, when you go to Sloan, there's very few women represented, so it's so important to us to give you a panel of women across the country who can speak to this content. If you're in Boston, please come up to me. If you see anybody with a red badge, we can help you get more involved in Wise Boston, whether it's providing content for your employees or getting more involved. We have great supporters, but a lot of you are from New York, LA, so there's chapters everywhere, and I'd be more than happy to connect you with those folks because it is so important to help everybody grow because it's so much better when we're all there together and providing different perspectives. So thank you so much. We're actually going to clear out all the chairs so there's more rooms, bring some tables out, and we have a lot of good food coming, so thank you again.